team.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Climate Clock. This is a show where we discuss everything climate change and sustainability. Today, it is the Startup Special, how entrepreneurship and innovation, along with appropriate capital infusion, can accelerate the fight against climate change. We have some brilliant startups that are innovating and bringing in newer ways or technology to mitigate climate change. At a global level, EDF, or Environmental Defense Fund, is a global environmental organization which is driving game-changing solutions to our biggest environmental issues like climate change, air pollution, and a lot more. How can India tackle this issue with a combination of investment capital, industry know-how, and entrepreneurial spirit? We have with us some brilliant founders. We have Sriram Kuchimanchi, who is the founder and CEO of Smarter Dharma, Sukhmeet Singh, founder and CEO of A2P Energy Solutions, and Nitish Rai, founder and CEO of Freight Fox. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today and speaking with CNBC TV 18 about how technology can play a role as far as the fight against climate change is concerned. And that really takes me to the first question. Sukhmeet, let me come to you because, you know, a lot of progress has been made in the key issues around agricultural waste management. What are you doing as an agro-tech company? What are the steps that are taken? How is the policy here? And what progress do you expect?
Thank you, Sonal. As you said, biomass or agriculture, specifically agriculture waste, has seen a lot of traction lately. We have three major components or three major players in this: government, industry, and farmers. From a government perspective, I think they are playing a good role in terms of changing the policy. So they have introduced a policy making it mandatory for thermal power plants and bigger coal users to start introducing biomass up to 5% for the coal replacement. When we talk about the industry itself, because of fossil fuel disruption and high energy prices, they are not because of climate change, but also because of the disruption in other fuel sectors. They are looking at biofuels very actively. And I guess the most important stakeholder, farmers. Surprisingly, farmers now understand in terms of the pollution getting generated from biomass fires. So they understand if it can be used, it is beneficial for everybody, including their families. Which if it is getting, the biomass is getting burned, they are the first inhalers of that smoke. So I guess from an environmental perspective or the stakeholder perspective, everybody is aware that the fossil fuel needs to be replaced and biomass is one of the key sources. From what we are doing, we are basically using technology to solve this problem. So we have made a platform which can identify biomass fires through satellite images. Then we know that, okay, these are the fire points across India where the biomass is extra. We have made a platform which basically connects the biofuel manufacturers with the end users, because the end user wants biofuels to be consolidated and want a consistent supply, quality, and in bulk quantities. So that's where our platform, Biofuel Marketplace, comes into place, where we connect small manufacturers of biofuel across India with the bigger players, and also sometimes farmers who want to supply directly the biomass waste to the bigger users.
So that is very interesting because, we see agricultural waste being there. We talk about stubble burning every year, December, but we really needed some technology solutions here to fight this issue. All three of you in different segments. So let me go across to, now Sriram, because Smarter Dharma is doing something as far as the construction space is concerned. Tell us more about your venture, because real estate is one of the biggest emitters of pollution in the globe, actually. So how does your venture allow these emissions to come down, and what is the pipeline looking like here?
Yeah, thanks, Sonal. So the construction industry is, as you rightly said, in the top 4. Infrastructure in general is in the top 4 greenhouse gas emitting industries. But what we are excited about is that it also has the highest greenhouse gas mitigation potential for the least capital investment. Simply because a building, once you build it, and any building, right, including a warehouse, a hotel, a house, a hospital, no matter what, they'll live 55 to 70 years. The fact that they're living that long, if you build them efficiently, if you build them with a decarbonized design solution, you automatically reap benefits over a long period of time, which is why the opportunity to have a long-term and sustained impact was possible in infrastructure industry, which is why Smartism has started focusing on that. But I also want to add another thing. See, India's path of housing for everybody in this decade and 100 smart cities. With these, the expected infrastructure by 2030 is so immense that it's a wonderful opportunity of a blend of impact as well as a business opportunity. That's where infrastructure stands out, which is why we started focusing on it. And what are we doing? Today, adoption of sustainability in building industry is half a side or driven by certifications. What we are saying is that's not sufficient. Two things are missing here. One, can we set goals? Can we say, like how the country has INDC goals from COP21, COP26, can a building have its own sustainability goals? Net zero is a very generic, non-scientifically calculated number as yet at a building level. So we have an algorithm today where we are automatically setting these sustainability goals for buildings and helping drive design, because what we're missing out is sustainability adoption at design phase in building industry. Sustainability adoption happens post-occupancy, mostly in infrastructure space, which is needed, but we realize that the gap is in the design phase. So we're starting there. We're helping the builder make a decision in any infrastructure decision making based on goals and driving that goal towards implementation. That's what we're doing.
So you have been able to... Yes. So so you have been able to identify that gap, and I want to ask you more about green buildings, what's happening as far as real and green infrastructure is concerned. But first, let me go across to Nitish again, because Nitish, as Sriram was saying, he's been able to identify that gap here in the construction space, so to say, at the starting level itself. At FreightFox, since we have not seen a lot of startups for sustainable logistics, what kind of plans or what kind of targets do you think the logistics industry should have in order to reduce emissions? Because we know transportation is one of the biggest factors which cause pollution. So where do you stand in that entire supply chain, and how things going for you there?
Yeah, and Sonal, as rightly pointed out by Sriram, that net zero part which he said, and any improvement cannot be done if we're not measuring it. Now, where FreightFox came into picture in the entire supply chain was that there are thousands and thousands of trucks which are moving goods across the country every day. And what is the age of that truck? What is the Bharat stage norm of the truck which is moving the material? Whether the loadability was correct or not, whether the optimization was done or not, depending on all these factors, how much fuel it consumed, and what is going to be the emission thereof from that particular truck trip, was something which is still today not available to the enterprises in the country. And that is something which we found out as a major gap, basically, because see, FreightFox was already into a very promising solution into freight procurement, management, orchestration of the manufacturing industry. But we took a step ahead, we took a leap ahead basically to create this logistics emission and abatement platform where industries, where manufacturing companies specifically can measure that how much material moved on what kind of truck, what was the age of the truck, what was the Bharat stage now of the truck, giving them all these visibility. And Sonal, you'll be happy to know that very soon with the government is coming up with the ULIP initiative and connecting the data points which were earlier scattered or fragmented, it is becoming even more powerful. So right now it is the complete app time where the entire industry can come together and actually work towards achieving this goal. In terms of goals, as you said, if we look at India typically put together everything would be expected to move about 4,500 billion ton kilometers of goods by 2025. When we reach there, each manufacturing industry should take a challenge that can they shift their 25% of this movement which is happening across from their plants towards a more sustainable way, whether it is alternate fuel, whether it is alternate vehicles, whether it is BS6, Bharat Stage 6, newer vehicles. All these things could be mixed bag kind of strategies which would come handy to the companies. With a platform like ours, they get to see the mirror very, very clearly that where they are and what will take them towards abating the emissions or converting their network, which is shipping to about 25% towards the greener mediums of shipment. So that's what we are doing. That's the gap we are addressing right now in the industry.
Okay. So you also spoke about how all the stakeholders or the industry is coming together in order to achieve that goal of sustainable logistics. So that really takes me to the next question, and that is to Sukhmeet. farmers, they're a big part of what the work that you're doing, and technology is something which drives innovation in an industry like yours. So since it engages directly with farmers, you did speak about how farmers have been more proactive in this case now, but what has been the response to innovators? Is that shift happening rapidly? Do you think more work is needed here to make them shift to technological advancements in order to reduce agricultural emissions?
So, Sonal, surprisingly, farmers today are, I would say, very well aware in terms of, the tech. So every farmer knows how to run a mobile. They search based on voice. So it's, a very interesting shift which is happening. So we can't say that, farmers don't use technology. They use technology in their own way. Now it's up to us, when we are designing the platforms, how do we take in that consideration that, farmers will be able to use that. I think, but the most important thing here would be, how can the technology benefit farmers? Farming, like any other profession, has particular returns, and those returns over the years have been diminished. So we can see statistics related to farmers' suicides, and all farmers with an average farm holding of 6 to 7 acres are hardly able to meet their ends. So what farmers are looking for is that how can they either earn more or reduce the cost, right? So that is what when we tell them, okay, don't burn crop waste, we will come and collect, or the other manufacturers who run biofuels, we connect them with the farmers. So it's from a farmer point of view, they are just looking for solutions where the stubble waste can be utilized, and they can earn some revenue out of that.
That is
just as a point of context, even when they burn crop waste, they have to spend 700 to 800 rupees per acre just on the burning, right? So if even if they have to burn, there is a cost to it. So if some company or some use of farm waste is there, they are happy giving, either on free or on some charge, but they are very happy in terms of that the crop waste is getting used because, either they can earn more, or at least they know that the whole biomass will not be burned in their villages, and there is less pollution or less smoke in the environment around.
Okay. So interesting points are there. There is a cost to even burning that stubble that we are talking about, or the agricultural waste. And that really takes me to the bigger question. Investments, because the investments in climate technology per se has not been very encouraging. And we've seen that, yes, renewables are seeing it. We have other sectors of sustainability which are seeing it. But generally, from your perspective, I wanted to understand, you would like to handhold VCs and take them through the journey of sustainability. Generally, what are your thoughts in this one?
When it comes to investments, generally VCs and Ps have options and choices. But when it comes to planet, we neither have option nor have choices, actually. So the thesis need to be well thought about in those kind of context. And I believe that India's story of sustainability is still evolving, and we are seeing some parts and parcels of interest which is coming in from the investments. I would like to point out, Sonal, that to attract the VC or P money, basically, we need three things. One is we need the value, which is basically there in sustainability, no questions there, actually, right? I believe every one of us know that what's the importance of sustainability today. After seeing the floods, the Bangalore is a recent example. These all things are some man-made and some definitely what we are doing towards our planet. The second is the presence of a scalable business model which can rapidly scale, basically. And that is where, if you look at Shriram, Sukhmeet, all of us are building technology platforms which can provide that launchpad, basically, to all the problems which are existing around us. And third, which I feel is basically the return part, which Shriram also pointed out well, is that this need to be seen with a slightly different lens, basically. So to a mix of value which is creating over a longer term. There are fund cycles which we need to come out for. We need to create funds, we need to create provisions, we need to create mechanisms to address them in a very different way, how compared to what we look at e-commerce, fintech, or any other field. So that would be my in summary, the point on that particular VC and E funding kind of thing.
No, absolutely. Take your point. So closing comments from you, Sukhmeet, lest we run out of time. What do you make of the VCP funding segment that we are talking about?
I think VCP funding, they have to give returns to their investors. So it's as simple as that. Until unless we start putting value to air pollution or social impact, that's all fine. When they make Excel sheets, they say, okay, keep that away. Where are the numbers? And then, all the other things about reduction of air pollution or the impact, comes as a side note, right? So unless we start giving dollar values to these things, I think the climate funding will be a tough choice. I think just from a different perspective, right? So startups in climate space can also get huge contracts from bigger organizations. But what we have seen, there also ultimately the value comes in terms of, if you're giving green fuel in terms of dollar value comparison to coal, though the CEOs talk about sustainability and all, but ultimately the game ends up with the procurement managers, where they say, compare it with other fossil fuels and then give us the costings, correct? So then, those sustainability, air pollution things are kept outside the door. So I think that's the shift change we need to have. And start giving dollar values against these things. And Prime Minister, talked about carbon markets for India. I think once these kind of interventions are done, then I hope there will be more value to the climate focused startups.
Okay. Point taken. That gap needs to be filled. Gentlemen, Sriram, Sukhmeet and Nitish, thank you so much for joining us on this special edition of Climate Clock and speaking with us about the climate tech funding and the scenario that's happening there. With that, we'll take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll come back with the other segment very soon.